It's also the first time royal watchers got to hear Kate Middleton and Prince William's kids speak clearly.
Princess Charlotte, she is of course third in line to the throne. She is of course the daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Look, it's nice. It's a 9-year-old girl who's having a birthday.
Princess Charlotte stood before the towering oak doors of the Grand Hall, her heart racing as she prepared for the moment that would change everything. The youngest royal in her family, Charlotte was known for her grace, intelligence, and quiet demeanor. Yet today she was determined to let her voice resonate far beyond the walls of the palace. As she smoothed the hem of her powder blue gown, she glanced at her reflection in a gilded mirror, her resolve hardening. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The occasion was monumental, a gathering of dignitaries, leaders, and visionaries from around the world to address the pressing challenges of the time: climate change, inequality, and the future of global peace. Charlotte, despite her young age, had been invited to speak due to her growing influence as a passionate advocate for humanitarian causes. Many were skeptical of her ability to make a meaningful impact, dismissing her as merely a symbol of privilege. But Charlotte knew that this was her opportunity to prove them wrong. The hall buzzed with anticipation as attendees settled into their seats. Ornate chandeliers cast a golden glow over the room, and the hum of whispered conversations filled the air. World leaders sat alongside activists and scholars, their expressions ranging from curiosity to polite indifference. Charlotte's mother, Queen Catherine, watched from a balcony above, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She believed in her daughter, but even she couldn't help but worry. This was no ordinary speech. It was a call to action. When the Master of Ceremonies announced Charlotte's name, the room erupted into applause. As the princess stepped onto the stage, she felt the weight of every gaze upon her. Her heart pounded, but she kept her head high. Taking a deep breath, she began. "Distinguished guests, friends, and dreamers of a better world," she started, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Today I stand before you not just as a princess, but as a young woman deeply concerned for the future we are shaping. I speak not for myself, but for those who have no voice, for the children, the marginalized, and the generations yet to come." Her opening words silenced the room. The casual whispers ceased, and all eyes locked onto her. She spoke with an authenticity that was rare in such formal settings, her voice imbued with a raw sincerity that pierced through the layers of protocol and decorum. Charlotte's hands trembled slightly, but her resolve only grew stronger as she continued. "We are at a crossroads," she said, her gaze sweeping across the audience. "Our planet is crying out for mercy, and its most vulnerable inhabitants are bearing the brunt of our neglect. I have traveled to villages where children drink from polluted streams. I have seen the tears of mothers who cannot feed their families because their lands are barren. And I have listened to the stories of young people who dream of a future that seems increasingly out of reach." Her words painted vivid images, pulling the audience into the reality she had witnessed. For a moment, the grandeur of the hall seemed to fade, replaced by the stark landscapes and haunting faces she described. Some in the crowd dabbed at their eyes, while others sat motionless, their expressions etched with guilt and introspection. Charlotte's voice grew firmer as she spoke of hope. "But amidst the despair, I have also seen resilience. I have seen communities banding together to rebuild after disasters, neighbors helping neighbors, and children finding joy in the smallest of things. These moments remind me that change is possible, that we are not powerless." She paused, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But hope alone is not enough. Action must follow, and it begins with us, here, in this room. We have the resources, the knowledge, and the influence to make a difference. So why do we hesitate? Why do we let fear and complacency hold us back?" The audience was spellbound. Even the most stoic among them leaned forward, captivated by her words. Charlotte's youth gave her speech a unique poignancy. She was not yet burdened by the cynicism that so often accompanies age and experience. Her idealism felt like a breath of fresh air, a reminder of what the world could be if only people dared to dream. As she spoke, Charlotte wove in personal anecdotes that brought her message to life. She recalled visiting a remote island devastated by rising sea levels. There, she met a young boy named Ari, whose family had lost everything. "He told me he wanted to become a scientist so he could find a way to save his home," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Ari's dream might seem impossible, but isn't it our duty to help him believe otherwise?" The mention of Ari struck a chord with the audience. The image of a child clinging to hope amid despair was both heart-wrenching and inspiring. Charlotte's speech wasn't just a plea for change, it was a challenge to reimagine the world through the eyes of its most vulnerable. As the speech neared its conclusion, Charlotte's tone shifted, her words charged with urgency. "The time for half measures is over," she declared. "We must act boldly and decisively. This is not a task for governments alone, nor is it the burden of activists or philanthropists. It is a collective responsibility, has the power to shape our future." She gestured toward the audience, her eyes blazing with determination. "You, sitting here today, have the power to create ripples of change. Use your influence wisely. Use it to amplify the voices of those who are unheard. Use it to protect the beauty of this world and to ensure that every child, regardless of where they are born, has a chance to thrive." When Charlotte finished speaking, a heavy silence hung in the air. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then slowly the room erupted into applause. It was not the polite, measured clapping of a formal event, but an outpouring of genuine emotion. Some stood, tears streaming down their faces, while others cheered with a fervor that echoed through the hall. Charlotte stepped back, overwhelmed by the response. She had poured her heart into her words, unsure of how they would be received. Now, as she looked out at the standing ovation, she felt a surge of hope. Perhaps her message had reached those who needed to hear it most. Later that evening, as the event wound down, attendees approached Charlotte to express their admiration. Many confessed that her speech had moved them to reconsider their priorities. One world leader, known for his reluctance to embrace environmental reforms, admitted that her words had struck a chord. "You reminded me why I entered public service," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for that." Charlotte's impact extended far beyond the confines of the hall. Clips of her speech went viral, spreading across social media like wildfire. People from all walks of life shared her words, praising her courage and vision. In classrooms, students analyzed her message. In boardrooms, executives debated how they could align their practices with the principles she had championed. As Charlotte reflected on the day's events, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had always known that her role as a princess came with responsibilities, but today she had discovered the true extent of her power. It wasn't about titles or wealth. It was about using her platform to inspire and empower others. The following weeks brought a flurry of initiatives inspired by Charlotte's speech. Corporations pledged to adopt sustainable practices, governments announced ambitious climate goals, and grassroots movements gained newfound momentum. Letters poured into the palace from people who had been touched by her words. A young girl from a small town wrote, "You made me believe that I can make a difference too." Charlotte cherished these letters, keeping them in a box by her bedside. They were a reminder of the impact she had made and the responsibility she now carried. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it with the same determination she had shown on that fateful day. In the years that followed, Princess Charlotte's speech became a symbol of hope and resilience. It was studied, quoted, and remembered as a turning point in the global conversation about humanity's future. And for Charlotte, it was the beginning of a lifelong journey to create a world where every child like Ari could dream without limits. As the sun rose over the palace the morning after Princess Charlotte's speech, the world seemed somehow different. Reports flooded in from news outlets, online forums, and social media platforms, each capturing the essence of the moment when a young princess had stood tall and delivered a message that touched hearts and shifted minds. Her words had been more than a speech. They had been a clarion call that seemed to ripple through the world like waves breaking on an endless shore. Across continents, conversations sparked in response to Charlotte's heartfelt plea. In the bustling streets of Mumbai, activists held impromptu gatherings, revisiting strategies to combat local environmental challenges. In rural Kenya, community leaders shared Charlotte's speech via radio broadcasts, translating her words into local dialects so that her message could reach the most remote villages. And in the towering skyscrapers of New York and London, executives sat in meetings, reconsidering the ways in which their corporations could contribute to the global good. Charlotte herself awoke to a flood of messages from across the globe. Her personal assistant handed her a tablet displaying an inbox filled with letters from dignitaries, humanitarian organizations, and ordinary people. Yet it wasn't the formal letters of praise that moved her most. It was the personal stories of those who felt seen and heard because of her words. A father in Bolivia wrote about his determination to fight for his daughter's future after hearing Charlotte speak of resilience. A student in Japan confessed that her speech had inspired him to study environmental science. As the day unfolded, Charlotte's calendar was filled with back-to-back engagements. She met with world leaders, activists, and influencers who had been moved to action by her speech. Each meeting brought new ideas, new collaborations, and a growing sense that something profound was beginning to take shape. Yet, amidst the flurry of activity, Charlotte remained grounded, her mind still replaying the faces of those she had met during her travels. The children, the farmers, the survivors of unimaginable hardships. They were her motivation, and she vowed never to lose sight of them. One of the most significant moments came when Charlotte received an invitation to address the United Nations General Assembly. The invitation was unprecedented for someone of her age and position, but the world had taken notice of her sincerity and the power of her vision. When she arrived in New York, the city was abuzz with excitement. Crowds gathered outside the UN headquarters, waving signs that read, "Hope for the Future," and Princess Charlotte, Our Voice. Inside the General Assembly Hall, Charlotte's presence was met with palpable anticipation. As she stepped onto the stage, she felt the weight of the occasion, but she also felt an unshakable sense of purpose. This time, her speech was focused on solutions, tangible, actionable steps that nations, organizations, and individuals could take to address the challenges she had so passionately outlined. "While words can inspire," she began, her voice steady, "actions define us. We must not only speak of change, but embody it in everything we do. Today, I want to present a vision, not just of what is possible, but of what is necessary." She laid out a comprehensive plan, drawing from the insights of experts she had consulted over the past weeks. Her proposals ranged from investing in renewable energy and reforestation projects to creating global funds to support communities affected by climate change. She also emphasized the importance of education, urging nations to prioritize the empowerment of young people. "We cannot solve the problems of today with the thinking of yesterday," she said, her voice resonating through the vast chamber. "We must cultivate a new generation of leaders who are not afraid to innovate, to collaborate, and to dream." Her words were met with thunderous applause, but more importantly, they sparked action. Within days, several nations pledged to adopt her proposed initiatives. The Global Resilience Fund, an idea she had championed, gained significant traction, with numerous countries committing resources to help vulnerable populations adapt to climate change. Charlotte's influence extended beyond policy. She became a symbol of hope for young people around the world, many of whom saw her as a beacon of what was possible when courage met compassion. Schools integrated her speeches into their curriculums, teaching students not just about the content of her message, but about the importance of standing up for what one believes in. One particularly poignant moment came when Charlotte returned to the remote island she had spoken of in her first major speech. Ari, the young boy who had inspired her, was there to greet her. He had grown taller, his once wide-eyed innocence now paired with a quiet determination. Together, they visited a new community center that had been built with funds from the Global Resilience Fund. The center provided education, healthcare, and resources for sustainable farming, transforming the lives of the island's residents. "Thank you for believing in us," Ari said, his voice filled with emotion. "You gave us hope when we thought the world had forgotten us." Charlotte knelt to meet his gaze, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's you who inspire me, Ari. Your dreams remind me why we must keep fighting." Moments like these reaffirmed Charlotte's commitment to her mission, but with great influence came great scrutiny. Not everyone was supportive of her efforts. Critics questioned her qualifications, accusing her of overstepping her role as a royal. Some dismissed her as naive, while others viewed her growing popularity as a threat to established power structures. Charlotte faced the criticism with grace, choosing to focus on the positive impact of her work rather than the negativity. She understood that change was often met with resistance, and that her role was not to seek approval but to push boundaries. Her resilience only strengthened her resolve, and she continued to advocate tirelessly for the causes she believed in. As the years passed, Charlotte's legacy grew. She founded the Charlotte Initiative, a global organization dedicated to addressing the interconnected challenges of climate change, inequality, and education. The initiative brought together experts from diverse fields, fostering collaboration and innovation on an unprecedented scale. Under Charlotte's leadership, the initiative launched numerous projects, from renewable energy programs in underserved regions to scholarship funds for students pursuing careers in sustainability. Each project was guided by the principles Charlotte had championed: equity, empowerment, and the belief that every individual had the potential to make a difference. One of the initiative's most ambitious undertakings was the creation of the Global Youth Forum, an annual event that brought together young leaders from around the world to share ideas and solutions. The forum became a platform for voices that were often overlooked, amplifying the perspectives of those on the front lines of global challenges. At the inaugural forum, Charlotte delivered a speech that echoed the themes of her earlier addresses, but with an added depth of experience. "The world belongs to all of us," she said, her voice filled with conviction, "and it is up to us to shape its future. Let us listen to each other, learn from each other, and work together to build a world where every dream is possible. The forum was a resounding success, sparking countless collaborations and initiatives. For Charlotte, it was a testament to the power of unity and the importance of empowering the next generation. Despite her demanding schedule, Charlotte never lost sight of the personal connections that had inspired her journey. She continued to visit communities, listening to their stories and learning from their experiences. These encounters grounded her, reminding her of the humanity at the heart of her mission. One evening, as she walked through a bustling marketplace in a small village, an elderly woman approached her. The woman's face was lined with years of hard work and resilience, but her eyes shone with warmth. "Thank you, Princess," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You've given us hope, and hope is a powerful thing." Charlotte smiled, her heart full. "Hope is where it begins," she replied, "but it's the strength of people like you that makes change possible." As the sun set over the village, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Charlotte felt a profound sense of purpose. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For she had learned that true leadership was not about titles or accolades. It was about using one's voice and actions to uplift others. Princess Charlotte's inspirational speech had been the beginning of a movement, but it was her unwavering dedication to her mission that ensured its success. Her story became a reminder to the world that even the smallest spark of hope could ignite a flame of change, and that, together, humanity had the power to shape a brighter, more just future. The transformative impact of Princess Charlotte's speech continued to reverberate around the globe in ways she could never have imagined. Every day she woke to a cascade of updates about initiatives inspired by her words, stories of individuals who had taken bold steps to create change, and organizations that were shifting their focus to align with the global vision she had so passionately advocated. One morning, as Charlotte sat in her study, a courier delivered a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a journal filled with letters, photographs, and drawings sent by children from around the world. Each page told a story: a young girl in Peru who started a recycling program in her village, a boy in Ghana who rallied his classmates to plant trees, and a group of students in Iceland who developed an innovative project to clean plastic from their coastline. As Charlotte flipped through the journal, her chest tightened with emotion. These were not the grand gestures of governments or corporations, but the simple, earnest efforts of young people determined to make a difference. Their actions reminded her why she had taken this path and reaffirmed her belief in the power of ordinary individuals to effect extraordinary change. The journal inspired Charlotte to launch a new program under the umbrella of the Charlotte Initiative, Voices of Tomorrow. The program was designed to amplify the efforts of young changemakers, providing them with mentorship, funding, and a platform to share their ideas. It quickly became a global phenomenon, attracting thousands of applications from aspiring leaders in every corner of the world. "This is just the beginning for you, Lila," Charlotte said after the presentation, placing a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "Your work will inspire others, just as you've inspired me." Lila's story became a symbol of the program's success, and soon, Voices of Tomorrow became a breeding ground for groundbreaking ideas. Young leaders tackled issues ranging from water scarcity to renewable energy, and their solutions were implemented in communities around the world. Charlotte made it a point to meet with as many of them as possible, drawing energy and inspiration from their passion. Meanwhile, the Charlotte Initiative expanded its reach in other ways. A partnership with leading universities resulted in the establishment of the Global Academy for Sustainable Leadership, an institution dedicated to training future leaders in ethical governance, climate resilience, and equitable development. The Academy's campus, located on a lush, sustainably designed property, became a hub for collaboration and innovation. Charlotte frequently visited the Academy, often participating in discussions with students and faculty. Her presence was both motivating and humbling as she listened attentively to the challenges and aspirations of the Academy's members. "Leadership is not about having all the answers," she often reminded them. "It's about creating an environment where everyone's voice is valued." While her influence grew on the world stage, Charlotte also focused on building bridges between cultures and communities. One of her most ambitious projects was the Harmony Exchange, an initiative designed to foster understanding and cooperation across borders. The exchange program brought together young people from different countries to work on joint projects, whether it was designing a sustainable irrigation system or creating art that highlighted the beauty of biodiversity. One memorable Harmony Exchange project involved students from Syria, Canada, and South Korea collaborating to create a short film about the universal impact of climate change. When the film premiered at an international festival, it received a standing ovation and sparked discussions about how art could be a powerful tool for advocacy. Charlotte's role in these initiatives required her to travel extensively, and each trip deepened her understanding of the world's interconnected challenges. In the Amazon rainforest, she walked alongside indigenous leaders who shared their knowledge of preserving biodiversity. In Bangladesh, she visited factories that were transitioning to eco-friendly practices, meeting workers whose lives were being transformed by fair wages and sustainable jobs. These travels were not without their difficulties. Charlotte often encountered resistance from those who viewed her efforts as a threat to the status quo. In one particularly challenging instance, she attended a conference in a nation whose government had been criticized for its environmental policies. As she addressed the assembly, her tone was firm but respectful. "We all face unique challenges," she said, her voice steady, "but those challenges cannot excuse inaction. The world is watching, and we have a responsibility to lead with courage and integrity." Her words were met with a mix of applause and skepticism, but Charlotte's unwavering composure won her the respect of even her harshest critics. Over time, her persistence and authenticity began to change minds, demonstrating the power of diplomacy and dialogue. Back at the palace, Charlotte maintained a close relationship with her family, who supported her endeavors in different ways. Her mother, Queen Catherine, often served as a confidant, offering wisdom and encouragement during moments of doubt. Her younger brother, Prince Alexander, became an advocate for youth empowerment, joining Charlotte on several occasions to speak about the importance of creating opportunities for young people. One of the most profound moments in Charlotte's journey came when she was invited to attend a summit on global inequality held in Cape Town, South Africa. The summit brought together leaders from diverse backgrounds to discuss ways to address systemic disparities in wealth, education, and healthcare. As Charlotte took the stage, she felt the weight of the history surrounding her. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," she began, quoting Martin Luther King Jr. "If we are to build a world that reflects the values of equality and dignity, we must confront the systems that perpetuate division and inequality." Her speech was both a critique and a call to action, urging leaders to prioritize policies that uplift marginalized communities. She highlighted the stories of individuals she had met during her travels, weaving their experiences into a narrative that was impossible to ignore. During the summit, Charlotte had the opportunity to visit a township where a grassroots organization was providing education and vocational training to underserved youth. As she watched a group of children perform a traditional dance, she was struck by their joy and resilience. "It's moments like these," she reflected later, "that remind me of the beauty and strength of the human spirit. These children deserve every opportunity to thrive, and it's our duty to ensure they have it." Charlotte's commitment to education deepened after the summit. She worked with global partners to launch the Learning for All campaign, which aimed to eliminate barriers to education by providing resources, technology, and infrastructure to underserved communities. The campaign's impact was immediate, with schools in remote areas receiving the support they needed to thrive. As years turned into decades, Princess Charlotte's legacy became firmly established. She had evolved from a young royal delivering her first speech to a stateswoman whose vision and actions had reshaped the world. Yet, through it all, she remained humble, always emphasizing the collective effort behind her successes. On her 50th birthday, the world celebrated not just a princess, but a woman who had dedicated her life to service. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, honoring her contributions to humanity. But for Charlotte, the greatest gift was a simple letter from a child in a small village. The letter read, "Dear Princess Charlotte, because of you, I believe I can change the world too." Charlotte smiled as she read the words, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had always believed that change was possible, and now, as she looked back on her journey, she knew that the seeds of hope she had planted had grown into a forest of possibility. Her story was not just her own. It was the story of everyone who had dared to dream of a better world and worked to make it a reality. And as she looked to the future, Charlotte knew that the work was far from over. But she also knew that the torch had been passed to countless others who would carry it forward with the same passion and determination. As Princess Charlotte moved into the next phase of her life, her efforts took on a deeply reflective and strategic tone. The urgency of her youth had evolved into a nuanced understanding of the complexities of global systems and the delicate balance required to drive change while maintaining unity. She began to focus on cultivating partnerships with unexpected allies, recognizing that progress often came from bridging divides between opposing perspectives. One of her most ambitious undertakings was the establishment of the Global Accord for Sustainability and Equity, a treaty aimed at unifying nations under shared commitments to address climate change and reduce inequality. The accord was a monumental task, requiring negotiations with countries that had historically clashed over resource allocation, economic priorities, and political ideologies. Charlotte's role was pivotal, not only as a mediator but also as a symbol of neutrality and hope. At the heart of these negotiations was Charlotte's ability to listen deeply and find common ground. In one memorable moment during a heated discussion between representatives of a resource-rich developing nation and a powerful industrialized country, Charlotte intervened with calm precision. "We are not here to protect what we have," she said, her voice firm yet empathetic. "We are here to imagine what we can create together, a future that serves us all." Her words resonated, softening the tension in the room and paving the way for a breakthrough. The accord was eventually signed by over 190 nations, marking a new era of cooperation. Its commitments included binding targets for carbon reduction, robust funding for sustainable development, and mechanisms to ensure accountability. More than a political document, the accord became a symbol of what was possible when humanity united behind a shared purpose. As Charlotte reflected on the success of the accord, she recognized that global agreements, while crucial, needed to be paired with grassroots action. To ensure the treaty's commitments translated into real-world impact, she spearheaded a global monitoring initiative called Earth Stewards. This initiative empowered local communities to track progress on sustainability goals, providing them with tools and training to hold governments and corporations accountable. In a small town in Indonesia, a fisherwoman named Amira became one of the first Earth Stewards. Using data collected through the program, Amira exposed illegal fishing practices that were devastating her community's livelihood. Her bravery drew international attention, and the government took swift action to implement stronger protections for marine ecosystems. Amira's story became one of many that showcased how local empowerment could amplify the effects of global policy. Beyond her work, Charlotte found moments of personal fulfillment in mentoring the next generation of leaders. She often invited young activists to the palace for informal discussions, offering guidance and encouragement. These sessions were as transformative for Charlotte as they were for her mentees. She found joy in their energy and optimism, and their ideas reinvigorated her belief in the boundless potential of humanity. In her later years, Charlotte began chronicling her journey in a memoir titled The Power of One Voice. The book was more than a recounting of her achievements. It was a call to action, a blueprint for individuals to recognize their power to influence change. As she wrote the final lines, she reflected on the journey that had started with a single speech, a speech that had grown into a movement, a legacy, and a testament to the unyielding spirit of hope. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Princess Charlotte making an inspirational speech? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.